Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a conflict of interest with regards to item P16-19, the C-Card holiday campers, in that I have financial business with the C-Card family, specifically Mrs. C-Card, who is the owner now, and her husband, the late Omar C-Card. So I will be declaring a conflict at this time.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Anything further? Okay, well, that does bring us then to the portion of the meeting which is the public meeting under the Planning Act. The purpose of this meeting is a public meeting to consider a zoning bylaw amendment application submitted by C-Card Holiday Campers. Mike Crow, IBI Group, is the agent. The Planning Act requires in Section 3412 that before passing a zoning bylaw amendment, Council must hold at least one public meeting for the purpose of informing the public in respect of the amendment. The purpose of this public meeting is to receive comments and answer questions from the public regarding the amendment to the Township of West Lincoln zoning bylaw. We stress that at this point, no decision has been made on the proposed amendment, and any comments received will be taken into account by Council in their consideration. The Planning Act requires through Section 3413 that Council advise the public that if a person or public body does not make oral submissions at a public meeting or make written submissions to the Township of West Lincoln before the bylaw is passed, the person or public body is not entitled to appeal the decision of Council for the Township of West Lincoln to the Local Planning Appeals Tribunal, or LPAT. Would the Deputy Clerk please advise of the method and dates by which the notice of the public was given?
Proper notice was given by way of regular mail to all property owners within 120 meters of the property on December 19th, 2018, and through a yellow notice sign placed on the property.
Okay, thank you, Madam Clerk. Okay, so our planner two, Mr. Garrett Borma, has this file tonight and is going to explain the purpose and reason for the proposed zoning bylaw amendment for the C-Card holiday campers. Mr. Borma.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Is that the right screen? Just tap the laptop, I think. Yeah, there we go. A zoning bylaw amendment application has been made by C-Card Holiday Campers to rezone portions of 7568 Regional Road 20 to allow for additional storage of recreational vehicles and trailers for sale. The property is partially located within the hamlet of Kimbo and is on the south side of Regional Road 20, east of the 20 Mile Creek and west of South Guernsey Road 10 and C-Card's current operation. The property was purchased by C-Card Holiday Campers back in 2014, at which time 5 acres of the property was rezoned to allow for additional recreational vehicle and trailer storage from C-Card's main operation on 7526 Regional Road 20. 5 residential properties back onto and abut the subject property. And you can see that on this drawing here where the proposed expansion is. The property is currently zoned Agricultural A, Agricultural A106, actually. So the property is currently zoned Agricultural A. If you can look on the screen, I'll kind of identify where the zonings are. Agricultural A106, which allows camper storage. Rural Residential RUR. And Rural Residential RUR 68, which allows for a small commercial operation that sells clothing known as the dresser drawer. The applicant has applied for a zoning bylaw amendment to rezone the Agricultural A portion of the lands to allow for an additional use of camper and RV storage, as well as locate a stormwater management pond to treat and control stormwater, and to rezone the rural residential portions of the property to a commercial C3 zone with a maximum permitted outdoor storage of 51% of the property. Staff have conducted a site visit on January 11th, 2019, and we took some photos of the site just to give the public and council some ideas of what's going on in the property. So I'll kind of go quickly through the photos that were taken that are also attached to the report. Photo 1, the first photo, is a picture of the existing 5-foot high berm with a 2.5 meter solid board-on-board fence that is located behind two of the residential properties currently. A portion of this berm and fence is proposed to be removed as part of this expansion. And this is on the south side of the south side of the properties, south side of the berm, and you can see the camper storage there. Photos 2 and 3 are of the westerly berm, which is also proposed to be removed. And if you look, that berm is to be removed, and there will be camper storage extending westerly too, as proposed. Photo 4 is of the north side of the berm and shows the, once again, the 5-foot high berm with the 2.5 meter fence, as well as the chain link fence. And photo 5 is the property line between Mr. Carl Merritt's property and the property owned by Seacards, which is proposed to have the camper storage. And in the background, you can see the 5-foot berm and the 2.5 meter fence. Photo 6 is the subject property with the subject dwelling that is proposed to be demolished. And in the background, you can see Mr. Rob Chileo's house, who is one of the neighboring residents back there, and a fence that separates the properties. So that is looking west. Photo 7 is of the same house looking east, and that is Mr. Carl Merritt's property, or a house right there in the background. And this is Regional Road 20, where the mouse is. And photo 8 is the fence between Mr. Rob Chileo's property and the dresser drawer business that exists currently. And this is the same fence, but looking we're at the south end and we're looking north. And this picture 10 is of the property line behind Mr. Don Merritt and behind Mr. Ari Kleinendorf's property, where it's the westerly extent of the camper storage. Staff have also met with the neighbors and the agent for the applicant, Mr. Michael Crow, over the proposed application. During these meetings, we also had a meeting all together with the Mr. Mike Crow, as well as many of the neighbors. And the neighbors suggested that a possible amendment to this plan would be to retain an acre of land along the frontage and retain the residents and the residential use up front to maintain the residential character of the hamlet. The MPCA and the region of Niagara have indicated that they will both require further studies to be prepared, such as an environmental impact study, prior to the support given to expand the camper storage uses on the agriculturally zoned piece of land, which is where the mouse is now, westward towards the 20-mile creek. The region and MPCA support placing a holding zoning provision on the property till such study is completed and it's confirmed that the extent of the natural features are confirmed. If the zoning is approved, the applicants will have to undergo a site plan application, which will go through the finer details such as grading, fencing requirements, setback requirements. Planning staff in this report have reviewed and summarized all the information and comments received so far by the applicant, neighbors, agencies, and departments, and have done a preliminary review of current planning policy. A recommendation report will be prepared by township staff following any input received at this public meeting and any agency comments, and will be presented at a future planning, building, environment, and committee meeting. And that's all. And the agent for the applicant is here and has a presentation also for you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Borman. Mr. Crow, do you want to? Oh, my.
Are we okay now? Okay.
Most definitely on. Go
I've never
ahead.
actually had, say hot mic before in my life, but it's actually true. So, good evening, Madam Chair, members of committee, members of the public. My name is Mike Crow, C-R-O-U-G-H. I'm a senior planner with IBI Group. I'm a registered professional planner, and I'm here to speak on the application before you. This is for 7568 Regional Road 20, referred to as Sicard RV. So we've been retained by the owner of that property, which is Sicard Holiday Campers, to advance the zoning amendment application. So I've read the staff report. It's fairly thorough. I think if you've read through our planning justification report, I think it's pretty thorough. So I'm just going to hit some of the high-level points behind our application and what we were thinking and what we think maybe the next steps might be. And I'd be happy to answer any questions following that. So just to recap, so these are the subject lands before you. To your right, the more rectangular shaped piece is what I will refer to as the main site. And that's where the existing main operations are. You can see that there's buildings on there oriented towards Regional Road 20. And so that's the main operations of the building, the service function, customers go there, parking for visitors and customers are there. There's a good chunk of storage on there as well. There's also some service functions and service bays, fueling station, and of course there's the storage laid out as you see it on this air photo. To your left, the more regular shaped portion, that's the previous expansion area Mr. Borimer alluded to that went through previous approvals for rezoning and site plan approval. And then to the north would be part of the area we wish to expand onto, as well as to the west. This is just a hamlet view. It's just kind of putting the properties in the context of sort of the Kimball Hamlet and surrounding properties, just to give sort of a mind's eye of where we're sitting from a wider scale. In terms of the property, so we've made an application specific to the one site, which is 7568. Right now, it's not joined or merged in title with the main site, so these are technically two different properties. They do function as one, and if you were to go look at the air photo, you'll see there's a contiguous driveway in the pinch point where the two properties connect. And so they are functioning as one entity, but they are two separate properties. Just want to make clear on that. So the main site has an area of approximately 5 hectares, and the existing and the site we're wishing to expand to is approximately 6 hectares. So it's a little bit larger. So on the RV business itself, it's a family-owned and operated business. It's been started as Sicard Holiday Campers in 1968. There's previous expansions of this operation through the the buildings I discussed previously, as well as site acquisition. This business is one of Canada's largest volume dealers. It's also one of the largest employers in West Lincoln. There's about 100 employees. And right now, they have immediate need for storage expansion. They're using off-site storage in a variety of locations. So they're not functioning at full capacity. And so the driver of the application really is to how can they efficiently use their lands to remedy that problem, so they no longer have to rely so much on these off-site storage locations. So this is a public meeting under the Planning Act. We are considering the zoning amendment application. And the whole purpose is really to rezone lands that Sicard RV already owns to allow that more efficient use for surface storage. We submitted concept plans, site plan, and a grading and drainage plan along with a stormwater management brief. And that shows generally a permeable surface with landscape buffers and fencing. And we also have a grading and drainage plan which is proposing a stormwater management pond. And we know that those works are to be implemented through site plan approval. So right now these are conceptual. This is our first pass at it. This is what we think is our best foot forward. So this is the plan we've submitted. We've underlined a current air photo just to give an idea of how it might match up. The stormwater management pond in the bottom left-hand corner, we are under the impression that we've had to accommodate for both quantity and quality control, and that would accommodate any of the new proposed gravel surface area. So we've sized and located that facility to accommodate drainage that would come essentially from Regional Road 20 down to the south. And that would work in conjunction with a potential swale, which would kind of just be in the location of the existing berm that's there right now. The layout of the trailers that we're showing is highly conceptual. It's just to give a bit of an idea of how it could be regularized. There's really no lining of those spaces, or they're not defined for specific parking dimensions. It's just based on a size and length of one of the larger units, just to show how regular that space might be used. Part of this plan would be closing off the existing access point to Regional Road 20, and then we would remove all buildings and structures. Very little grading and drainage alterations. We're trying to, with the grading plan, accommodate the existing grading and drainage patterns right now, and not really alter grades between properties or affect patterns, really just accommodate existing grading and drainage. And then we've made allowances for landscape buffers, and within that, we made allowances for fencing. And, I'll get into a bit more on that in a few slides to come. In terms of the zoning, we tried to capture a way of regularizing the zoning that applies across the property right now. So we're defined by the split between the hamlet boundary to the north and the agricultural area to the south. So that number one area that I just keep calling a pizza slice for lack of a better term, that's the area we want to extend the A106 zone to the west. When we looked at the mapping from the Niagara Peninsula Conservation Authority and looked back to the pre-consultation comments, we always understood that we could regularize that boundary by adopting the NPCA greatest extent of hazard or feature extent, and that's what that line represents. So that number 4 area would essentially rezone that portion of the lands to the EP zone. It would very much exactly follow the NPCA greatest extent limit. And then number 2 and number 3 would then rezone those lands from the RUR 68 to, we're proposing the C3 right now, which is the same zoning designation which applies to the main site. So we would try to harmonize the zoning, have 2 different zoning categories to reflect the hamlet and agricultural split, and then set the new boundary for the EP limit. That's really the intent behind that zoning category. So, and just backtracking a little bit here, but the main site, so that area is about 5.45 hectares. It has lots of frontage on Regional 20 and South Grimsby Road 10. The application site is a larger site, but a lot of that is constrained by the existing natural features, so there's not as much available there for any other options. And it has less frontage. We're about 56 meters on Regional Road 20. In terms of the surface storage area that we're talking about, so this is a rough approximation from air photo analysis. The existing is about 6.45 hectares. That includes both sites, if you're looking back to the air photo I presented at the very beginning. The new we're proposing is roughly 1.28 hectares, so it's a total of about 7.73 hectares of storage. That includes the buildings and everything. So that would be the total you would see in our conceptual plans, both areas put together. One piece of information that's not in any of our materials, or it's not submitted with our applications, just some information on the types of vehicles that are stored on site right now, the way that this is intended to operate, the kind of storage that it's intended to accommodate. So this information is available just from the Sicard RV website. It's just I put this together in consultation with the owner just to give everybody an idea of the kind of vehicles that are stored on site that we propose to be stored in the area we're talking about and what the inventory is. So right now there's 873 units on site, and that can be split between what I would call motorized vehicles and non-motorized. And if you look at the numbers, there's a huge difference between the number of motorized vehicles on site and the number of non-motorized vehicles. Overwhelmingly, the inventory is non-motorized. And so that category across the top, travel trailers, these hybrid types, tent trailers, different types of fifth wheels, park models, those are all non-motorized vehicles, and that is the business model, right? It's the ones that are pulled by another vehicle, a truck, a car, something that is intended to be completely movable. They're not permanent, and they don't idle, they don't have emissions, there's nothing, they're not hooked up to anything. That's the overwhelming majority of the inventory. The other motorized vehicles, you'll see along the bottom of the screen, so there's these RVs that are meant to be driven, that would idle and would run. And then there's a couple of smaller versions of those types, and then he's got a few trucks on his property right now. In terms of size, this is just, there's a bit of a range between these, but I wanted to put some numbers to those types of vehicles as well. So the Class A types are those that I call the largest, and really the length and the heights of those are really their largest vehicles for the most part. The travel trailers are the ones that are the most numerous on site, so there's about 522 of those right now, and they're the smallest category, so they can get longer, but they're only in the 8 to 11 foot range. So they're the lower ones, And the photo evidence I'm going to show will kind of walk you through what I think the key differences are. But that is really the main business, the main focus of the business. So here's just some pictures to put those in context. Top left of the screen, you'll see those are the Class A drivable bus type versions, right? There's only a limited number of those, and they're on site right now. But as you progress down through that, sort of to the bottom right-hand corner, you'll see majority of these vehicles are what I consider to be smaller scale vehicles that are pulled, by another motorized vehicle. And they range in style and shapes, but for the most part, they're the lower scale, smaller type vehicles, and they're consistent with those images. These are pictures from our site visits as well. I've been on site approximately, I think, 5 or 6 times now, going back to the summer. We did some site visits with the owners prior to the pre-consultation. We've done sometimes some site visits since then. We've also walked with staff as well. So this is just an image looking effectively from the already expanded area to the north towards Regional Road 20. So the berm and the fence is behind there. Those trailers, and those are an example of some of the types of travel trailer pulled vehicles that you would see on site right now. And that's, again, consistent with the images I've already shown. This is just looking straight through, too, on either side, so just to get a sense of size and scale of some of the vehicles. These aren't all of them, but you see a man door on the right-hand side. I mean, that's obviously a human-scale door, so these are not overly large vehicles in this instance. It's just another example of some of the inventory on site as well. Another one of those. This is the existing dwelling, so we've made clear our plans right now are to remove that dwelling, but just for everyone's clarification, this is the dwelling that fronts onto Regional Road 20, and that's the subject dwelling that's on the property now. This is the commercial business, the dresser door business, so it's a previously modified agricultural style building that's being used for a clothing shop. This is the area that I called the pizza slice earlier, so this is looking to the south, down the berm that we are hoping to expand into as well, right? So it's being generally mowed and cleared, but not used for any type of storage or use. So the owner is desirous to make use of that land right now, and our plans show and make allowances for that. This is the northern part of what I would call the agricultural hamlet split. So some is covered in Garrett's pictures already. This is sort of reinforcing the same imagery, right? So this is a portion of the land still in the agriculture area that we're looking to expand to, but just south of the hamlet boundary. And then that would be parts of the other properties to be looking to the north towards Regional Road 20, and you can see the dwelling just in the back of the image there. So again, this is sort of the cleared land that we're looking to expand onto as well, and this would be in the hamlet area. This is the streetscape. This is looking to the west, past the signage out front of the existing property now, catching some of the dwellings that abut to the west. This would be then to the east, so and just past those dwellings would be the existing Sicard RV site. And then this is the berm and the fence that a good portion we're proposing to remove. This would split between the property that he already owns, so this is effectively dividing functions of the property in 2 halves, and the berm was really preventing any encroachment of storage into the hamlet area onto lands that really are already owned by the owner. I just put this together for today's presentation, so I'm just trying to think through. So staff have mentioned we've met with the owners, we've read the public comments, we've met with neighbors, we've met with staff, and we're just trying to understand what some of the issues are. So in our drawings, we've made allowances for a landscape buffer and some fencing. And I've tried to put in everyone's mind's eye what I think is possible in terms of a separation distance and fencing based on our existing plans. So in this diagram, I've just taken a typical travel trailer style. This one happens to be just under 11 feet. The brand, that's just a logo. It's not really the brand for sale here, but it's just an example of a travel trailer, almost 11 feet in height. And then I put a spec for a solid board fencing to about 8.5 feet. Right? So with an 8.5 foot fence and 11-foot travel trailer, we can screen almost the entire thing. And for scale, that person is just under 6 feet, right? So this gives you an idea of the type of screening that's possible, and this is really what was the intention behind how we've laid out our concept plan. It's just another example of that. So depending on your vantage point of where you're at, it is possible to see those vehicles. Obviously, they are taller, but we can screen over 90% of the face of those vehicles with a standard board-and-board fence. And if we look down, this is just a cross-section view. This would show a 2-meter landscape buffer. That's the green strip. The fencing can be accommodated within that buffer, solid board, cap on top. That red vehicle in the foreground is the larger Class A type vehicle, which for the most part would not be in this area. And then just past that, you can see the decrease in scale to the typical travel trailer and the interface that would exist, where if we respect the landscape buffer and accommodate this fencing, we can have a good distance separation and full screening of those vehicles. So we have to this point reviewed all the agency and public comments. We've reviewed the information report. We've met with the neighbors. We've discussed options. We've looked at ways to address concerns. We're going to continue this process, right? So the way I always like to explain it in my experience is the staff information and technical report is the first chance to have these kinds of discussions. And so we're going to continue to listen and think about options. So we're not, abandoning that process. And, the main point is that they do require approval for the expansion of the operations. And right now we're committed to that proposal. And so we think that our application represents good planning. And we're willing to, continue the discussions with all involved to see, what's possible. And I'd be happy to take any questions at this point.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Crow, for your presentation. Members of committee, anyone with a question for Mr. Crow at this time?
Thank you,
Okay,
Madam
Councillor
Chair.
Trombetta?
I reviewed this over the weekend, Mr. Crow, and I saw, actually, I went out and met with a bunch of the residents during this proposal. Looking at it, I was wondering a couple things here. There's a bunch of things with this application that were bothering me. The zones 1 and 4, I really didn't have too much of an issue with, but the zones 2 and 3, they raised a lot of concerns to me. With the zoning of the 2 and 3, I don't know if you can bring up, I think it was page 7. Yeah, right. The next, can you go back? I guess, yeah. So zones 2 and 3 were a big issue to me. Can you go to the next slide? I think it's the one before, page 7, I think it is. Yeah. So what this proposal that you're showing is trailers all the way up to pretty much Highway 20 is what's the proposal right now. Where I have an issue with this is, there's residential houses right beside. You're boxing in residential homes that are been there for a significant amount of time. It's pretty much enclosing them in a I'm not going to say, I guess, trailer park. I understand it's a trailer business, but it's enclosing them completely. Not to also mention some of the properties on the west side of this application. So I don't know why, and I don't know why the way it was designed by the IBI group. I guess you're just trying to utilize the lands that you have. But, to box in residents that have been there for a long time and to, obviously they've lived with the disruption for years, and now to pretty much enclose that for those residents, I do have a bit of an issue with that.
So, excuse me, Councillor Trombetta, do you have a specific question?
I'll get to
at this
that,
point?
Madam Chair.
Because we need to hear from the public as well.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
So the one question I had was the rezoning to C3. Was it originally a C3 zoning, or was that towards more Mr. Treble that I need that answer from?
Through the chair, I can answer that question. So no, the zoning right now is the RUR residential and the RUR 68, which is a modified rural residential, and that modification allows the dresser drawer commercial use. There's restrictions on the size and the type of that use. We picked the C3 zone because that's what's on the existing site to the east right now. So we were matching that site in the Hamlet area from the perspective of a commercial use in the Hamlet area, we thought that was an appropriate base zone to start our working with, right? And we didn't think it was appropriate to maintain a residential base zone if we were going with a commercial. So we utilized the zone that already applied to the part of the site, part of the operations right now. And that was really the intent behind picking that zone.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that answer. That's fine, Madam Chair. I'll let further my questions later on as
Okay.
the meeting.
Okay, thank you. So we're
Continues on.
looking right now at just a specific question, if anyone has another question specifically for Mr. Crow. Mayor Biltma.
Yeah, thank you very much, and I appreciate the presentation, and there's going to be a lot of information coming out, I guess, about this over time. Just a quick question, is there going to be any kind of road access now that you come to, with the addition of that property, you've come right up to Highway 20. Is that ever going to be an access? Is there something preventing you from making that an access, or what's the plan?
Through you, Madam Chair, I mean, our plans right now show like there's the driveway there now, and
Yeah.
we are proposing to close that, and we would screen and fence that whole frontage with fencing and landscaping.
Yeah.
So we're not proposing any right now. I don't want to prevent us from doing that, but in the future, but there's no plans. We want to close it. And
Okay, I just want to know if that's going to be an issue. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Well, for now, thank you, Mr. Crow, and we'll go to the public. Thank you. So this is the time for people in the public to have an opportunity. So I'm going to ask, are there any oral or written submissions from anyone present regarding the proposed zoning bylaw amendment? I would like to stress that this may be the only public meeting held with respect to this application. Therefore, if any members of the public would like to make comments and/or provide written comments, they should state them or present them now, as the LPAT may not consider comments made during any other council and/or committee meetings. Also, anyone wishing to speak are required to come forward to the microphone at the table and provide their name and address for the record prior to speaking. And I will just add as well, if you happen to have speaking notes or a prepared statement, if you would give that to the clerk, that would be appreciated. That will help her keep her record straight. Thank you. So I'm, again, looking for anyone from the public who might like to speak.
Hi, my name's Robert, and this is Amanda Chileo. Want to go first?
Sure, I just wrote this, so. Okay. Hello, my name,
We're at 7574
Regional Road 20. So we're
Thank you.
affected by 2 and 3 on the picture. So hi, my name's Amanda Chileo. I live at 7574 Regional Road 20, Smithville. This proposed change will have a direct effect to my family's health, safety, and privacy. If this goes through, 50% of our property will be neighbored by C-cards. Unfortunately, our daughter was born stillborn this past March, but we hope to have more children soon. I see my future children playing in the backyard freely, but if this goes through, I will now have to worry about their safety with daily exposure to strangers from the customers and staff at C-Cards, their health from exhaust from RVs, and for all of us, the decrease of our privacy. And for a side note, I want to add that this fear is fueled partially because last summer there were thieves and squatters that gained access to C-Cards through our property. We purchased our home 4 years ago in the country in this residential hamlet for a certain level of privacy. We did not purchase a home next to a commercial property. If we wanted to live next to a commercial property, we would have done so or purchased a home in the city. To all of the decision makers here tonight, when you deliberate and you make your decisions, I want you to think of my family. I want you to think if this was your family and it was your children, nieces, or nephews that were playing in the backyard, how you would feel. I'm here to protect our dream and to fight for the continued safety and health of our family. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. Did you want to speak as well?
Basically, I want to say some of the same things, but it does cover, or these changes do affect 50% of our property line. We have the smaller property right beside them. And right now we enjoy the privacy we have, and we don't want that to change, but with these changes that are proposed, we feel would change the privacy we have in our backyard, to just knowing that there's people, strangers on the other side of the fence, not neighbors. So we would like neighbors to remain residential.
Thank you. Do you want to put your notes in?
And wants to make her notes?
My chickens.
Okay. Thank you. Okay.
Hi, I'm Vanessa Kleinendorf, and I live at 7580, and this is my husband, Eric. So I'm just going to give a little bit of history over the hamlet. I've only been there, it'll be 40 years in September, so I'm going off the cuff. The neighbors can probably tell you more. Kimbo is a friendly little hamlet. The name Kimbo is from an Indian name meaning owl. At one time, the old Highway 20 was part of the Kimbo Road, which is like an elbow in the road. The highway was changed sometime in the 30s or 40s. I'm not really sure of the date. Kimbo was one time a home to the post office on the property of B&J Machini, the church manse on our property, and a church was on the property where the cemetery still is. There is also a cemetery along the back of the creek behind our property. This cemetery has stones that dates back to the early 1800s. That's the only stones we could read. Some of them are older. On the corner of Road 10 and Highway 20 was the home to the Wayside Inn. It was a prime home of a gas station, restaurant, and inn for travelers to spend their night on their travels. It has since been replaced by the Bristol Motors. The hamlet, directly impacted by the C3 zoning, has a strong bond in our neighborhood community. We all watch out for each other in our community. Most of our homes were built by the Merritt family in the community. These families and Bob Smith are longtime members who have spent their life there. Ari bought our property, 7580, in 1976, and I moved there in 79. Robin and Amanda are first-time home buyers who have lived in the community for 4 years. Changing the zoning at 7568 would bisect the hamlet and our community. As for the area behind our homes, we would like to have a berm with a fence to provide us all with privacy.
Thank you. Ari, did you want to add anything further to that, or?
No, I can't think of any thorough at the moment. As Hamlet and family, we've been there for over 40 years. I come into the Hamlet through the Merritts, and they're third generation. And I knew the gentleman that built that house. They want to take out, and the uncle, and the highway, and how the road was all done. And I know everything about the project because I took him just like family.
Thank you. Gus, did you want to pass your notes in? Thank you. Is there anyone else from the community? Okay, good.
Okay, we are Carl and Bev Merritt, 7558 Regional Road 20. We object to the proposed rezonings requested by Seacar Holiday Campers as written. If allowed as proposed, it will impact our rural lifestyle within a residential hamlet. Our property and home would become a peninsula within a Seacar-owned business, thus impacting our privacy and property values. I had some stuff in here about the hamlet. Vesta's covered there very well. It's just other than we grew up in that hamlet community with the church there. We have recent loved ones buried in a cemetery across the road as far as, and generations back beyond that. And the other cemeteries in behind on the creek bank dates beyond all of that. Skip that part. The land on the south side was agricultural pasture land and cropland farmed by my uncle. The south side was and is still residential homes fronting onto Regional Road 20. In the 60s, the school bus picked up 19 children in this part of Kimbo. As you can understand, I grew up there for over 60 years. I grew up there with my cousins and the neighbors, and was one big growing family. I've lived in Kimball 60-plus years. I grew up amongst relatives, neighbors, in a safe, friendly environment. We've owned the property for 40-plus years, where we have renovated the home and grown trees to make it what it is today. We've raised our children here and are now raising our grandsons here. This is a caring community who help each other out and look out for each other. We do not want the added traffic and noise and risk of fire and theft that would come with bringing trailers right to the road, plus the separation of the residential homes. Sicard's owns approximately 1,500 feet of commercial frontage on Regional Road 20 and South Grimsby Road 10. The 187 feet that they would gain by tearing down the residential home, which by the way is one of 7 on the south side of the road there, which one home out of 7 is a fairly big impact. It would leave the 2 residential homes left in the middle of their yard, means little to them, but much to those affected. The piece of land they purchased is 16.5 acres, and we are asking that 1 acre plus of residential be left as is, so lessen the impact on the neighborhood, as there was already problems with drainage, noise, diesel fumes, lighting, lack of maintenance, and a showing of total disregard for the residential neighbors. When they own that much land and have all of that, it is not necessary to park diesel pushers against the residential homes and run them for hours on end. It's just, anyways, we can only see this as getting worse.
Thank you. Do you have notes that you could also leave with the clerk?
Unfortunately, I probably need to get them typed up, because she would have a hard time to decipher mine.
Okay, you can send them in. Bev, did you also want to speak?
Yes, I was just going to say too that I value the fact that we're in a residential hamlet. It's a group of homes there that we're all closely knit. We got along. We appreciate each other, and I really don't want to be separated from the rest of the neighborhood. I note the noise that takes place there, and so just to put the barriers there, although that 5-foot berm plus the 8-foot fence helps, you have to appreciate that even a week ago Sunday, there was a tractor running in the back and banging something, and that was in the winter time. It's not like with Bob Smith's business, he has certain hours. They run all the time. It's not like you can just sit outside and have coffee on the backyard because you're going to have all the other noise going on. I'm concerned about lighting. There's lighting in the business. I know the back is not to be lit up. But I am concerned that there will be all kinds of lights added to this, supposedly securing their trailers, but when you live in the country, you don't want those lights. I'm concerned about the security, safety, privacy. I'm also concerned about safety getting out of the driveway, and the first thing they're going to say was the trailer is going to be parked back, but I don't know how often you can go by and there's a trailer parked outside their fenced gate waiting to get in the next morning. And if we have that sitting there, we're not going to be able to see to get in and out of our driveway. And like Carl said, we have our grandson there and other kids coming in and out, and we want their safety to be considered as well. Thank you for hearing us, and we too would like to see that 2 and 3 remain as a residential spot.
Okay, thank you both for speaking. Are there any other members of the public who wish to speak?
Hello, my name is Joe Merritt, 7552 Regional Road 20. And Sicard's property borders my property. I've lived there for 40 years. And I have ongoing issues with Sicard's over these motorhomes that are backed against the fence and running. The whole house rattles, the dishes fall out of the kitchen. And I decided with Rob and his wife, 30 feet, I'm 30 feet from the fence is not far enough for a motorhome to be running. The whole house shakes. And it's ongoing all the time. I have to go tell them to shut them off. They won't maintain what they've already got. They're rezoning. The last time, every year I have to fight with them over cutting the grass. And the ditch they won't keep clean. It's an ongoing issue. I didn't submit a letter, but I'm here to support the rest of the neighborhood because I don't agree with putting trailers up there either. If they put trailers, they showed the little buffer for these motorhomes. It's a few feet away. It said 30 feet is not far enough away from the fence. And they have all these trailers, but they have to park the motorhomes against the fence where there's a residence. They could put them the other end of the property. I have no, I've asked them why they do it, and they have no real reason for it. And same with running the motorhomes, they said we have to charge the batteries, but anybody else I talked to, so you don't have to run them to charge the batteries, you just plug them in. That's basically all I have to say. I support the rest of the neighborhood, what they've said, but like I said, I have ongoing issues with site cards. It's everything I wanted to get, I have to fight with them every time they want to get something done.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Merritt. I knew that you were ready to speak because you jumped up at the same time and then sat back down, so, thank you.
I'm Bob Smith, well, Robert Smith. I own a machine shop directly across, building a new house. I grew up there. My mother's house was the post office. I have a few concerns. First thing about the zoning, it shows as other zoning. It's not designated what it's going to be zoned as. Saying is that, yes, they're going to put a fence, but 2 years from now, can they open that fence and start another used RV place if it goes through? That house has been there. I worked for the owner that lived there. There is a drainage problem. There always has since Seacard's been there. I actually worked and took hay off the property that Seacards are on now. There was a big ditch down through there for drainage. Now there's not. I say the same as Joe Merritt, that there's a drainage problem there. Since Seacards have put this property in behind parking lot now, I can also say Rob has a water problem just created in the last year. He wasn't aware of it. There was never a water problem there in the future. And this building a pond on top of a hill is going to store water. Water does not run uphill. The distance from the road, I just did some applying for a permit to build my new house. And I was just wondering, is the region going to take their 7.5 off the front of that also? So that will move their fence back. So they will lose that also. And I'm just concerned, I'm going to have to look at this fence also. There's been a house there all my life. Well, the house was built in the 60s. I remember when it was being built. And it is going to certainly change Kimball as a whole. I also agree that the property should be left as a residence. Just to save that frontage from being used for neighbors and myself. And that's basically the points that I wanted to bring up. That I'm not saying the Seacards shouldn't have the parking. I was aware of when the property was sold. It was too small to be farmed property, so it was a good fix for Seacards, but now it's becoming a problem for the rest of us now. So I just wanted to bring them points up.
Do you have notes, Mr. Smith?
No, I don't. It's
Okay.
all off my copy.
I'm sure our clerk has caught most of that. Thank you.
Okay, thank
Thank
you.
you very much. Okay. Are there any other members of the public who wish to speak?
Yeah, I'm Don Merritt, and I'm on the westerly side of the property. And for me, I don't necessarily like the idea, but it's behind me far enough that I'm going to be able to live with it. But to start encroaching on a residential frontage property, I can't see how it's ever going to work or why it's necessary. And I think other than that, that's...
Thank you. Jane?
Okay, my name's Jane, I'm Dawn's wife, and I'm just here to support all my neighbors. I agree with everything that they've said, and we are at the far end. It's not going to influence our property that much, but it just seems a shame to take a neighborhood and split us up, because we've been neighbors for many, many years. We're nice little row of houses, and to come in and just in the middle of it and cut it up, it's just a shame. So I would just encourage you to you know, we don't have a problem with the trailers behind us. It's not our first choice, but we can all live with it. but please don't take that house down or take that residential area and make it into a trailer park. It just would really be a shame.
Thank you. Mr. Smith?
I'd just like to add that there was a well on that property, and I have no idea where it's gone, a water well. And I know there is another water well in the building that the house, that the clothing store is in. So what will be the advantage of that well? When I did my relocation for my house, I had to show. Now, they don't have to. Was the property plugged? Is it going to condemn our wells that are resting on left?
I'm sure that Mr. Tribble has made note of that point.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I think everybody has been heard who wishes to be heard. Thank you. So at this point then, I'm going to ask members of the committee if they have any oral or written submissions on the proposed zoning bylaw amendment. Please note that members of committee must make their comments now, as the LPAT may not consider comments made during the planning, building, environmental meeting and or any other council or committee meetings. So this is your opportunity if you have a question or you have a comment. Mayor Belsman.
So I noticed on one of the pictures that there's a bit of a notch on the piece of, referred to as the piece of pizza. Is that the cemetery that's been referenced from time to time? Yeah, okay.
Lots of nodding heads. So
Lots of nodding heads. Okay, so that I saw it in there. I was just curious, and I heard about 2 cemeteries. That's just a little concerning from the perspective of these commercial, I guess, resting in peace. I too would. I'm wondering if there's that much to be gained by moving the trailers all the way close to the road and bisecting the houses. I noticed that the fabric is shown as an A, B, C, and D. And they're shaded differently. Is that to lend itself to a solution or a compromise where the residence remains a residence and there's a potential severance? Is there any possibility of a severance that could happen? So I'm to the director.
So
Either
to you,
director.
Mr. Treble, or to Mr. Crow, whoever's able to answer that.
Mr. Boerma.
Madam Chair, I can start. Mr. Kroll probably can speak further too. Certainly from the point of view of the fact that there is a hamlet boundary, and the hamlet boundary flows kind of along the back of the existing residential lots, sort of straight through this particular area. That is one possibility staff are exploring, is the possibility of retaining a residential lot versus allowing for parking or some sort of commercial use in there. So from our point of view, that's something that's on the radar and something worth pursuing and exploring before we put a recommendation report together.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Crow, you've moved to the microphone. Did you have something further to say?
I think that the intent behind the shading on our zoning map was not that. We weren't thinking of that with our original proposal. It was just a function of the way the zoning map is now. We need to identify all the different parts. But we have heard that comment, and we're obviously here to consider and listen, but that was not the intent behind that schedule.
Okay, thank you.
I'm good for questions for now.
Councillor Cody?
This is more for you, Mr. Crow. I'm flipping between the PDF here I have of the zoning and Google Maps, and it looks like there's a giant portion of land to the south of the existing trailer lot that they're not using. Like, to me, on Google Maps, it looks like there's more land here than they will be gaining from this rezoning. Like, why are they not utilizing that land further to the south of that lot currently?
Through the chair, yeah. Can I I don't know if I could put a graphic back up just real quick. Yeah, that's fine. So if I may, yeah.
So yeah, south of where it says A106 there.
Exactly. So that black line here, okay, is the existing zoning boundary. And this zoning designation right now is EP, Environmental Protection Zone. So for all intents and purposes, if you look at the zoning map from the previous zoning amendment, This is where the flood elevation was identified
Okay.
by the MPCA. And so that's a fixed hard line that we don't have any information to say we could modify that zone because that's the flood boundary. It's the same constraint we have that carries all the way up here. And if you look at our map where we're showing a potential addition to that EP zone, we've just tried to match up the hazard layers and actually add land to that designation. Otherwise, yes, it would seem a logical area, but it's a no-go for us.
Okay.
Technically.
Okay.
Thank you.
Councillor Jonker?
Yes, through you there, Chair. I looked through this here and right away my concern is the residential. If you just count the amount of trailers you could park on the 68 lot, you got 42 spots. So yeah, I'm glad to hear that the staff is going to look at the fact that can we severance that off. I think it would benefit everybody, right? If you can severance off a lot, a house that's still there, residential, right? And just even if you get 60, say 68 as residential, they only lose 42 spots to park a trailer, and yet they have a residential property that they could sell. So to me, that's what I would like to see happen, but we'll have to wait to see what staff comes back with. But I think it makes, that to me would make the most sense. And yeah, you don't want to wreck that flow of residential property there, right? So, yeah. And to save the one little notch there too, there's some old buildings on there, but yeah, there's still quite a bit of trailers they can park in there too, right? So we'll see what staff comes back with, I guess.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Riley?
Thank you, Mrs. Chair. Just looking at this initially, I have to admit I'm kind of concerned for the way how it's going to box in those two residential homes there. Never mind hearing some of the testimony today of people talking about, I guess, some of the patrons of C-Card holiday campers there. I guess having vehicles idling all hours of the day and night. So I'm more or less curious, Mr. Crowe, I don't even know if you can answer this, but do you know what measures are going to be taken, if any, to help, I guess, control that noise concern as well as add extra security? Because I know if those are my home by any means, I wouldn't be happy either. And so I think, on a broader scope, has that even been in consideration, or is this just let's put this together and figure it out as we go?
Through the chair, so I mean, we've considered, in our view, we've considered the compatibility issue right from the get-go. I hadn't heard of the comment until I met with the neighbors about the potential, the previous intrusion into the property, I guess, through the site. I wasn't aware of that. So my only comment to that was, well, I think that the fencing we're proposing would assist with the security issues. So there's nothing there right now, right? And we're talking about an 8.5-foot, 9-foot fence, so it's a little harder to intrude on something like that when it's enclosing the whole area. So, we think that would be an assistance in that issue, but other than that, the security was really more for, are these going to be stolen, or is it going to be damage, and that's really the focus of the plan in that sense, right?
Okay, thank you. Also, to Mr. Treble there, have you heard about this drainage comment that was made earlier? Like, is this something that was a new discovery, or is this something that is just kind of how the original master plan was?
Through you, Madam Chair. Staff, when we were out on site, observed some of the drainage concerns. In addition, I know that Mr. Crowe is working on a site plan, and on that site plan it does include some of the existing sort of drainage pattern or plan. I think there's some sort of an underground pipe that's providing some drainage to the area, and a suggestion that part of that might be blocked. So the benefit of the site plan process will be that will help us sort out and try and get drainage improved. In fact, a stormwater management plan is a key component that will be done as part of the site plan to help, or at least hopefully help, address some of the drainage issues that are there. So certainly when we were on site, we did see drainage concerns, and I think we're all aware that there is a bit of a challenge with flow, and this grading plan that's proposed should hopefully help alleviate some of that.
Okay, thank you. One last question here. Obviously, I'm not in the trailer business by any means, but when I look at this, I feel like some of the way how the trailers are laid out, I don't know, it feels like it could be a little bit more organized. In the event that they should sever the land, could this not be, I guess, redesigned in a way to be more efficient with the land that they have, or possible consideration of, I know you're saying the floodplain is going to be what's preventing you guys from going down, but even just looking at this graphic's not up right now, but it looked all neat and tidy when you had like the little square images up there, and we're all 68. But I'm just wondering, when I look at this, there's a lot of wasted space. It feels like it could be a little bit more neat and tidy. Maybe it's easier said than done. But I was just curious if that's something that they've considered, even being more efficient on their end.
Through the chair, I think it's an ongoing concern of theirs, right, is efficient use of their land. So, they have to move these around, right? So they've got some of those defined aisleways where they're backing things in and out. I think this airflow is more a function of that. This same situation exists now as we're proposing. There's no line spaces, right? They're not defined parking spaces. There's no paving there. So it does move and adjust depending on the types of vehicles that are there, and that's kind of based on their inventory and the demand, right? So, but he definitely, I mean, as you can see, there's different ways of organizing those vehicles throughout the site. So what we've shown is just conceptual, and yeah, that's a fair comment. I think we would pass that on to the owner as well.
Okay, yeah, I just think, like, obviously, I'm not necessarily recommending that they pave it all, but if there's some way they could just organize some of those lines to make their, I don't know, I just see that they could probably easily get another dozen or so more trailers in there if it was just a little bit tidier. So, but thank you. That's all.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Trombetta, did you still want to speak?
Well, I said most of my comments earlier, Madam Chair. Through you, Madam Chair, to Mr. Treble, what other properties does CCARD owns around the C3 area? Do they own anything to the south of that, or is it just, I can't tell what's highlighted and what's theirs and what's not theirs? I don't know, maybe if we can zoom in or zoom out, one or the other.
Through you, Madam Chair, the C3 is clearly all theirs.
Clear,
Immediately
yeah.
to the south, that is the people that operate the greenhouse operation in that area, so that's off limits. And then the strip of land over at the A106, which includes the RUR 68, does go quite a ways south, which is deceiving because it looks like a lot of land, but unfortunately there's a lot of regulated area in there that at this particular point in time does not appear to be available. There's no question the obvious solution would be try and push trailers south and get them away from the residential area to the north. But with the Conservation Authority's regulated features at present, that's tougher to achieve than it looks. I do believe, though, and Madam Chair, it might be something if we could confirm. I believe it was Carl Merritt that mentioned the other day when we had a meeting that flooding had come up to a line of trees, and I think that line of trees is near the EP zone and hadn't come much closer than that. Would that be correct?
In my lifetime, which isn't all that long, but sometimes it comes right at that corner, it comes up just beyond those trees.
Just beyond,
North,
okay.
But then it angles on an angle across.
Okay.
It's much, like that line they've got drawn, if anything, is too high compared to what I've seen in my lifetime. But we've had canoes and boats and everything back in there. When that floods, that was considered the third field was always floodplain. And it's all actually regenerated now back to wild. It's gone back to shrubs and bushes and.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Merritt, for that input, and thank you,
Thank you.
Mr. Treble.
And just one last comment, Madam Chair. I think the residents are willing to work with something. I know, according to when I've discussed with them. And I think if the IBI group would go back to the drawing board, and if we could see possibly, especially myself, to see, sections 2 and 3 eliminated, and maybe go back to the drawing board, I think something could possibly get done. But until I personally see sections 2 and 3 removed, I'm going to have an issue with this application. But again, speaking with the residents, I know they did meet with you guys, and that's a good step. And I'd like to see more dialogue done, and hopefully a decision can be made that satisfies both parties and that moving forward. But at this point, myself, I'd really like to see sections 2 and 3 removed from this application. But thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Crowe. Anything? Mayor Billson?
Just one more quick question. I see that there's a proposed septic system. Is that part of this application as well, through to the Director of Planning?
Mr. Treble?
Through you, Madam Chair, it's referred to in our chief building official's comments, but it's actually on the main site.
Yeah, I see that, but is that part of this application in any way, shape, or form?
Not really, no.
Okay.
No.
Seeing no further comments from anyone, I'm going to give the, oh, sorry.
I had one other comment. If that front was left as residential and we're supposing that water has to take care of it by the collection area, would that not mean that the collection area has to be smaller, so they're going to pick up more area by leaving that front residential?
I'm sure that when the meetings are done and when all of those things are discussed, they'll be looking at those details going forward. Any changes to this plan certainly will change some other things that I'm sure that they'll be prepared to look at. So, okay. So please be advised that a technical report is being considered by committee this evening, and that a recommendation report will be forthcoming to a future planning committee and/or council meeting. Please be advised that once the Planning Committee and/or Council has made a decision with respect to the zoning bylaw amendment, and if approved by Council, a notice of its passing will be circulated with an appeal period. There is an attendance sheet, sign-in sheet, and I noticed many of you were there already, which is located at the table near the exit doors, which we would ask all present to sign. Please ensure that when signing the attendance sheet for this evening's meeting, that you place a check mark in the column marked C-Card Holiday Campers if you wish to be advised of any subsequent meetings and/or decisions on this matter. Therefore, people who are interested in observing council and/or committee discussions about a particular bylaw should not solely rely on mailed notices and thus miss the opportunity to attend the meetings. It is suggested that you watch the township's website for posting of agendas to review items that will be discussed at a council and/or committee meeting. The agenda for meetings are posted on the township website at 4 p.m. on the Friday prior to the meeting. Additionally, meeting schedules are also noted on the website for the public to view. If you wish to receive notices by email, it is suggested that you include your email address with your mailing address and your phone number on the attendance sign-up sheet. So I think we will declare that this public meeting with respect to the proposed zoning bylaw amendment is concluded at the hour of 7:38. Thank you for coming. We'll give them a minute to. Thank you. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, you're welcome to stay if you wish to see the rest of this meeting. Otherwise, no, you're free to leave. Thank you for coming and offering your concerns.
I'll try and write this out in something more readable form and get it to you as soon as possible.
Thank you. Okay, there are no appointments this evening. And is there anyone who has something on the agenda that they care to speak about tonight? Anyone from the public? Okay. So we'll move then to number 6, which is consent agenda items. All items listed below are considered to be routine and non-controversial and can be approved by one resolution. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a council member requests it, in which case the item will be removed from the consent resolution and considered immediately following adoption of the remaining consent agenda items. So 6A, item P15-19. 1, report number PD-015-19, a recommendation report, Morgan Avenue versus Morgan Street. We've visited this before, so you'll be familiar with that. Number 2, report number PD-013-19, a recommendation report, parking signage adjustments on Margaret Street, College Street, and Morgan Avenue. Number 3, PD-014-19, recommendation report, correction to the bylaw wording for no parking signage on Streamside Drive. Number 4, report number PD-018-19, information report, policy update, the Ontario government releases new environmental plan for consultation. Number 5, report number PD-019-19, an information report, increased housing supply in Ontario. Number 6, report PD-022-19, information report, proposed amendment 1 to Places to Grow Plan 2017. And report number 7 is report number PD-025-19, which is also an information report. It's the 10-year review of Ontario's Endangered Species Act, and it's a discussion paper. Recommendation is that the Planning, Building, Environmental Committee hereby approves the following consent agenda items. Item number 1 is items 1, 2, and 3B and are hereby received, and the recommendations contained therein be adopted. And items 4, 5, 6, and 7B and are hereby received for information, with the exceptions of item. Seeing none, I need a mover. Councillor Jonker and a seconder, Councillor Mayor Bilsma. You're sitting in my seat, so you're a councillor. Okay, all in favor? Thank you. There are no communications tonight, so we will move to staff reports. A is item P16-19, Planner 2, Garrett Borma, and Director of Planning and Building, Brian Treble. Report number PD-02419, the technical report for Seacard Holiday Campers, Mike Crow, IBI Group Agent. Application for rezoning, file number 1601-024-18. The recommendation is that report PD-024-19 regarding Seacard Holiday Campers, Mike Crow, IBA Group Agent, pardon me, application for rezoning file number 1601-024-18 dated February 11th be received, and that a recommendation report be presented at a future Planning, Building, Environmental Committee meeting once all agency and public comments have been received. So I need a mover for that. Mayor Bilsma and a seconder, Councillor Trombetta. Okay, and you have noted that, clerk? Okay, thank you, Councillor Rayner. Okay, any further comments or, okay, all in favor? That motion is carried, thank you. And B, item P17-19, Director of Planning and Building, Brian Treble, report number PD-016-19. It's an information report, security for the Atwater Plan of Condominium, 37 Brookside Terrace, from Phelps Homes Limited. And the recommendation is that report PD-016-19 regarding security for Atwater Plan of Condominium, 37 Brookside Terrace, from Phelps Homes dated February 11th, 2019, be received for information purposes. And I need a mover. Councillor Riley and a seconder, Councillor Cody. Are there any questions or comments? Okay, Mr. Treble.
Madam Chair, just to make sure everyone has noticed, there is an item of correspondence that was at your desk tonight from a law firm that represents the Condominium Corporation in this particular case. The letter should have SV Law up in the top corner. And so I want to make sure committee has seen this. There seems to be sort of 4 themes in the letter, if I may, Madam Chair. One is a reference to the fact that they believe that there are additional deficiencies on this property, and when I say they, I'm referring to the condo generally. And there seems to be a suggestion in page 1 that it's up to the township to identify what the deficiencies are. But the process that we have gone through to date is to look at all of the deficiencies and, to look at all of the items that have been completed related to the securities that we've been holding. And with respect to the securities we've been holding, all of the deficiencies, I am being advised by our staff, have been properly addressed. There is an area of deficiency that some former councillors, some current councillors, and staff are aware of, and that relates to privacy screens that were the topic of a staff report back in, I think it was September last year, when there was a proposal on the table to do an amendment to the site plan agreement to remove the privacy screens but that did not go well with the rest of the community. So there's been no further action happened on that particular issue. So there is this one complaint file that has identified a deficiency in privacy screens, but it's not normal that staff would go seeking out additional deficiencies if there are any. But there seems to be a suggestion in the letter that that should occur. They are also asking that the money not be returned until this issue of whether there's additional deficiencies be sorted out. But the challenge is the money is not related to deficiencies that they have identified to this point in time. The money relates to securities that we collected for lot gradings and perimeter fencing and additional other types of things. So the money is to be held for certain works to be completed. Once those works are completed, the money should be returned. And that's I think where this letter's getting things mixed up is it's meshing bylaw enforcement actions in with security, which the two are not related in any way. So I just wanted to sort of explain that to you. I realize you probably haven't had a chance to read the letter, but it is here for your pleasure.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Treble. Anything further on that? Councilor Riley?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to mention something, actually, through you to Mr. Treble. If I understand correctly, like if we were to, I know this is just for information right now, right? But a denial of this payment, would that lead us to some kind of legal action or liability for, I don't know, court costs or something like that, dealing with the I guess the this Atwater plan, not themselves but the builder, and what is it like? I think we had this conversation before about a different developer, and so I just want to make sure I understand. Like, there's nothing we can do with this. This is not like a leverage situation that is actually within our scope to do, right?
Mr. Treble.
Through you, I'll be careful how I answer this. Certainly happy to provide more in a confidential discussion if we need to go there. But for now, the way the security is held, we keep back 10% for 1 year. That's the standard practice with all site plans. That 1 year expired in February of 2018. So they've been eligible for their money back for a good 11, almost 12 months now, and did not make the request until just before Christmas. Staff in both Public Works and in building are of the opinion that all of the requirements that were reasons why we collected the security have been properly satisfied in accordance with the master plans, not necessarily in accordance with the expectations of the community, but in accordance with the master plans. So I think we have an obligation to release. I just wanted to make sure that everyone was aware that this was happening, and if I didn't sort of do a proper disclosure, then we wouldn't all be on the same page, and hence the reason it's an information report. It's not really seeking direction not to proceed, but it is just giving you the information to make sure we're all aware of what's going to happen.
Thank you.
Anybody else is fine? Okay, so the recommendation again is that report PD-016-19 regarding security for Atwater plan of condominium from 37 Brookside Terrace from Phelps Homes Limited, dated February 11th, be received for information purposes. So we have a mover and a seconder already, so all in favor? Thank you. Motion is carried. Okay, moving on to item C, Planner 2, Madison Etzel, and Director of Planning and Building, Brian Treble. Report number PD-027-19. Again, an information report about the Wellandport Master Plan Project and Community Improvement Plan for streetscape work. The recommendation is that report PD-027-19 regarding Wellandport Master Plan Project and Community Improvement Plan for streetscape work dated February 11, 2019 be received for information purposes. So I need a mover for that as well. Mayor Bilsma and a seconder, Councillor Riley. And any questions or discussion about that, Mayor Bilsma?
So just, I'm just kind of curious to know that at this point, is it aligning with our master streetscape plan that we have already kind of undertaken in say, Smithville proper, so that the communities and hamlets would take on the same theme or flavor that we've already kind of worked on? It's just if you could speak to that briefly through you, Chair, to Director.
Okay. Mr. Treble?
Through you, Madam Chair, the the urban design manual that was completed a few years ago will certainly help set some of the standards and expectations that should be applied. But as currently presented, it's proposing that we'll do our own streetscape plan for Wellandport. I would assume we'll see a lot of carryover. In fact, there is some desire, I think, to probably have a bit of continuity in some of the themes. So that's part of what will get flushed out through, I would say, a consultation process that will happen with the community and some of the reports that will come back before this committee over the next few months. If there's a desire of council to see some of that continuity happen, then certainly this would be a great time to sort of share your thinking in that regard. But I see benefits in carrying some themes forward to all the communities eventually when we're able to get there.
One follow-up. And then just kind of a follow-up to that, is there a concurrent plan by the region, because this is of course a regional road, is there a project that this will align with? So if you could speak to that.
Through you, Madam Chair, this is the exciting part of this. Not only are we doing some planning work, there's actually a deadline that will see action happen. So based on current regional planning, in 2021, it's proposed that the Canberra Street regional piece be upgraded, some curbing be installed in the whole bit. So we're trying to align our work so that we can actually get the behind the curb sidewalk concepts done and designed and implemented in the same time frame as what the region is doing. So 2019 will be some key planning time, and then 2020 will be into the intricacies of the engineering design, and then 2021 should be the build. That's the goal.
Excellent, thank you for that.
Okay. It's looking good. Things are coming
Yes,
together.
yeah.
Okay. Any other questions or comments about that piece? Okay, all those in favor? And that motion carries. Okay. All right. D is item PD 19-19. Again, Director of Planning and Building, Mr. Brian Treble. Report number PD-017-19, recommendation report, request for further provincial considerations of existing green energy projects. The recommendation is 1, report PD-017-19 regarding request for further provincial considerations of existing green energy projects dated February 11th, 2019 be received. And 2, that this report be submitted to the Provincial Ministry of Energy, Mr. Greg Rickford, as further comments from the Township of West Lincoln on the Green Energy Repeal Act. So I need a mover for that. Mayor Bylsma and a seconder, Councillor Riley. Okay. Any questions about that? Councillor Jonker? You thought you were voting already? Okay, you're fast, Mayor Bylsma.
I just want to make the comment that I think it's excellent that this is coming forward, that we continue to keep the dialogue open with respect to some of the issues that were raised in that report. And so I think it's showing a show of good faith to the residents who raised the concern so long that we're still advancing this, and I hope that they're taking note and that we're still thinking of them.
Exactly. Thank you. I also think that each time these reports come down, I am pleased when I see that our staff have already been through them and have questions to get further explanation or things that they're not sure about, that they're trying to sort of make the ministry think a little bit more about certain things. So when I see these things come forward, that pleases me too. Anything further? Okay. All those in favor of this report? Okay. Thank you. That carries. Okay. E is item P 20-19, Director of Planning and Building Brian Treble. Re-report PD-026-19. Again, an information report. Required policy to protect and enhance tree canopy as required by Bill 68, Modernizing Ontario's Municipal Legislation Act. The recommendation is that report PD-026-19 regarding required policy to protect and enhance tree canopy as required by Bill 68, Modernizing Ontario's Municipal Legislation Act, dated February 11th, 2019, be received for information purposes. So again, I need a mover. Mayor Bylsma and a seconder, Councillor Jonker. Any questions about this report or comments? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor? Thank you. Okay, so we've moved now to other business, and A is item P21-19, an opportunity for members of committee who have other business matters I'd like to present tonight. So, Councillor Riley, do you want to go first?
Absolutely. Excuse me. I'm hoping that, actually it's more, I guess, a request. I'm learning how to do this. I request that issues regarding Bridge 34 be brought up for discussion at the next Public Works meeting, February 19th, 2019, for discussion of alternative options.
Okay, so you want that placed on the agenda then for
That is
Public
correct.
Works?
Sorry if I
Okay,
didn't make that
okay,
clear.
that's
Yeah,
fine.
if it could just be on the agenda for just a little bit
Madam
further
Clerk, you have that?
conversation.
Okay. I'm going to go over to you, Councillor Rayner. Did you have anything this evening? Welcome back. Have that last amendment? Okay. Councillor Trombetta?
Yeah, on a different note, I attended the Fulton Brunch on Sunday. It was a nice event. People realize Fulton does have a little community center there that doesn't get too much action all the time. It's tucked away there on the far west side of Highway 20. So it was a packed house. The breakfast was good. Residents were all out. I was kind of shocked because, you know, I thought, you know, it wasn't going to be that busy, but the whole parking lot and the road was jammed with a lot of residents. So I just want to say I attended that, and the breakfast was lovely. And again, we always kind of forget about that little Fulton Community Center that's out there in the far west end.
I
of
never
Ontario.
forget. We've been going to that brunch for years.
I know. A lot of people forget.
Give them
where-
another plug. It's a
where
good-
it is,
it's a
right?
good
So,
brunch.
but I guess that I've inherited that ward. I really wanted to take a look at that community center. So I was there on Sunday, and it was a lovely event. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay. Mayor Bill Smith.
Well, speaking of packed houses, on Saturday we had the opportunity to fill out the old arena for the final public skate for that slated for that building, and it was a little fuller than usual. We've used that event, we've done that skate for a couple times with the family, but it was kind of neat. We had an opportunity to run a little nostalgia through the building, and then of course the next day even more packed houses. We got a sneak peek of the new arena, and there was certainly a wow factor when people came into the foyer and had an opportunity to kind of see firsthand what's been going on there. I think there'll be a few people, so I'd just like to say this, there'll be a few people who are disappointed that it's going to be closed this week to continue with the construction, so I just kind of wanted to highlight the fact that no, they can't show up yet to start using the track, but there's certainly a lot of interest. People did walk around it, so just a few short days away, we'll be able to make that more available to the public permanently.
Thank you. Councillor Jonker? Councillor Cody? CAO. Ms. Hendry, what would you like to say this evening?
Just a little bit of clarification on a couple matters. First of all, with respect to the rec center, as the mayor mentioned, last week we were able to secure what they considered conditional occupancy of the facility that allowed us to have the skate on Sunday. And it is back into a construction site as they finish up the final change rooms and some of the items that hadn't met the requirements for full occupancy. But the plan is that the minor hockey tournament is going to be happening this weekend in the facility. And there's also an intent with a family day activity happening on Monday. And that's all with fingers crossed that all the other items get dealt with. So appreciate everybody's patience. We know that everyone is really, really anxious to get in. But we want to make sure we have everything in good shape and is safe and secure. And there will be a number of deficiencies that we will see. So we're looking forward to the public's feedback on those items. And if they bring them to our attention, we will make sure that we get them addressed. That was one. Oh, sorry.
Sorry, I just want to add to the Family Day event. I did hear some rumbles of a Family Day event, and now is that just sort of like, is it more of a grand opening? I know we had, or is it just an event that's going there? I've been asking some questions.
This is one of the soft openings.
Soft
So
opening.
it's-
That's a better way of putting it, Mayor Bosma, yeah, okay.
In fairness to our construction group that have been working really hard to try to meet our request to get into the facility, we are doing a number of sort of soft events. There will be an official grand opening, but we'd probably like to do that when we actually have plaques up and signs up and all those things that will recognize all the people that contributed to the project. And that will probably be later in the spring, early summer.
So there'll be like, I understand, soft events, is that?
No ribbon cutting,
No, but like,
hullabaloo.
it's Family Day. A lot of people have been, the reason why I'm asking, because people have asked me and I didn't really have a straight answer for them. Obviously a lot of people have been tucked away at home with these weather storms, and they're hearing that Family Day, there's an event going on at the new arena.
Yes.
So people are asking me, and they're thinking, is it a grand opening and this and that? I didn't have an answer for them, so that's where I'm kind of going.
I think the best way to characterize it is we always run a Family Day event.
Okay.
And we're running it now in
The new arena, perfect. That's
Okay.
the answer I need. Thank you very much. A Family Day event at the new arena, perfect. Excellent.
You had something else you wanted to add?
Yes, again, a bit of clarification on two other matters that came up. And Councillor Riley, you'd asked that next week we talk about more of the bridge options. Staff aren't bringing forward anything. You're going to be raising an issue that will maybe generate more work. But I just want to make sure that that's clear.
Yes, I understood that.
Okay. And then Councillor Rainey asked for an update on some of the road work that went on. So that'll just be a verbal update. We have our new Director of Public Works starts that night, and I'll be probably covering and doing that update on his behalf.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Treble, anything more that you want to add since we're going around and around?
No, Madam Chair.
Mr. Borma, anything you want to add? Okay. Well, I also, of course, attended the Fulton brunch as we've been doing, and it is always wonderful. So I love to give it a plug as well. I want to give a plug to my husband, who will, not having been on skates for over 10 years, did 3 rounds and 3 laps in the old arena, but 5 in the new arena, and was quite pleased with himself. And so the one thing, of course, that people are talking about today is the sound system. And so that's one of the things that needs to have the bugs worked out. And it is a good. You gave them a few things, but bottom line is, I think people were very pleased with what they saw, and very excited to see more.
Again, on that, we received our partial occupancy on Thursday. We got handed the microphone on Friday. Had not been tested, and the system. There are a lot of mechanical pieces that staff are really anxious to get in there and learn all how the systems work, so that we can deal with those sorts of issues. So we're doing our best.
I don't think it bothered the skaters or the watchers. I think people were
No.
just
Yeah, I was going to say.
If the speaker didn't care, then it really is good.
Mr. Billsma there just amplified his voice there. I think everybody heard.
Okay. Mr. Treble.
Madam Chair, it just dawned on me, if I may, there's 2 upcoming OMB, forgive me, LPAT dates, just I can put on the record. I think Council will have received notice that on March 7th, 8th is the hearing for the Wade Road lot of Phelps Homes. And then on May the 23rd, I believe it is a date that has been set for the RVL property on Station Street at Spring Creek Road that we have talked about. So those are coming up, and I'll keep you informed as we get closer to those dates.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Treble. Okay, well, that concludes this portion of the open portion of our meeting. We are going to move into confidential. Very briefly, I'm going to give you the reasons, first of all, and some of you can be gathering your things if you're getting ready to go. We're moving for item P, 22-19, Director of Planning and Building, Brian Treble, re-legal/bylaw enforcement matter. The applicable closed session exemptions are litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or local board, the security of the property of the municipality or local board, or advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose, and that will be a verbal update. And B, item 23-19, again, Director of Planning and Building Brian Treble, read legal/bylaw enforcement matter, applicable closed session exemptions again, litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or local board, the security of the property of the municipality or local board, and advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose. And again, this will be a verbal update. So I need a motion to go into closed session. So Mayor Billsma, moved by Mayor Billsma, seconded by Councillor Trombetta. All those in favor? Okay. And once our clerk has things under control,
Participate where you can. I know you're still